Hey, it's me, Sonic! Sonic the Hedgehog! Who am I? I don't know. I guess that's why we're here to find out. I usually just go with the flow, but I guess this Juice guy is gonna tell us all about how I inspire my friends or whatever. I'm just gonna sit back and relax on Emerald Coast and listen to the waves crash. Oh, yeah! Yeah, that's right, Sonic. You just sit back and relax while I do all the work. Maybe if you didn't change your personality so much, this wouldn't be so bad. But no, you just have to say things like this.
Hey, Tails, you missed the BBBE.
Huh?
Best boss beating ever.
You know what? I'm not even gonna worry about those. We have too much on our hands already. Let's just get going already.
Video game mascot Sonic the Hedgehog has battled the forces of oppression and injustice for over 30 years. The consequences of these actions have reshaped society as we know it and will still be felt for years to come. The Juicebox, Sonic Character Analysis. How Sonic saved his world.
Hey, you look nice today. I'm Juice, and welcome to my character analysis of Sonic the Hedgehog, who seems to love summer beaches, though personally, I figured his favorite season would be spring. To give you the background on what this character means to me, I'll start by saying that the Sonic Adventure titles are some of my favorite games. They were the first games I played as a kid that made me realize games could tell a story. And it's not as if I hadn't played games with more subtle stories, like Ocarina of Time, for example. It's just that stories like that went way over my head as a kid. Most of the time, I was just exploring Hyrule with Epona and having fun. But games like Sonic Adventure got me invested in the characters themselves and how they drove the story forward. And look where we are now, making character analysis videos on YouTube. It's because of these roots that I've put thousands of hours into the Sonic franchise. Going back to play all the classics, analyzing the games over on our podcast channel, and even speedrunning Sonic Adventure 2, my favorite in the series, and kinda the best one. Sort of. But the character that started it all, the one propelling me to do all this in the first place, is the Blue Blur himself, Sonic the Hedgehog, who doesn't just influence me, but everyone in his universe too. Sonic in storytelling is what we would consider to be a flat character arc, which is defined as a character that already knows and upholds their inner truths, even if the people and world around them change, and the focus is often shifted to how they influence those people. Compare that to a character like Shadow, who has a positive character arc, starting by believing in a lie, and overcoming that lie with the contradicting truth that transforms their identity for the better. The reason why I bring this up is because I believe it to be the core of who Sonic is in his games. He's a genuinely good guy who values freedom and independence above all else, and it's this that leaves a positive impact in the world around him. He doesn't go out of his way to be the hero. He just happens to stop the bad guys because they're in his path and it's against what he stands for. He's fully confident in how his actions will affect others, and so he has the freedom to carry out those actions, and will always let others do the same, even if they don't share in his philosophy. It doesn't matter who is wrong or who is right. He's got his own way, and he knows it. Today, we'll be talking about how Sonic influences other characters in his stories. But first, we'll have to talk about his origins. And it all started back in 1991, when Sega was trying to do the impossible: beat Nintendo at their own game. Everyone knows Mario, right? That Italian dude with the overalls and the red hat, right? Well, forget about it, because there's a new guy in town, Sonic the Hedgehog, designed to be even more recognizable than the titan of video game mascots. Took them a while to decide on it, but that cobalt blue to match Sega's logo, those red and white shoes to contrast, those spiky quills and cute ears, all masterfully designed by Naoto Oshima, who... Hold on a second. This picture was taken at GDC 2018, which means I literally could have met this man. Well, that's rather unfortunate, isn't it? Wait a minute, I just realized that's the same color palette as Mario. Is that all it takes to make a successful mascot? Let's see. Perfect! Give my beautiful creation a name in the comments, please. Anyways, the thing that stands out more than anything is his attitude. I bring all this up because I believe his design and personality to be relatively consistent throughout the games we'll be talking about today. That carefree, cocky, kick-ass, and adventurous attitude where he fights with his sense of justice for the underdog makes its debut in the very first game, where Sonic learns that the evil human scientist named Dr. Ivo Robotnik lands on South Island and is up to no good. Sonic rushes over to the island but realizes that unlike his past encounters, Robotnik has caught all the local animals and turned them into mindless badnik servants. Wait, what? I didn't know that Sonic and Eggman had encounters before the very first game. Oh, yep, here it is. Alright then. Sonic makes his way through the many zones of South Island, freeing the animals and defeating Robotnik while hunting for those Chaos Emeralds along the way, which Eggman was going to use to further his plans due to their incredible power. If you liberated all the animals and collected the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic returns to Green Hill and finds the local animals joyfully hopping around. If you didn't complete everything though, Sonic gives you an annoyed look, letting you know you still have work to do. That attitude really showing itself here. From the very start, we see Sonic's philosophy come into play. He's not gonna let some dude skate by when he's imprisoning sentient creatures and forcing them to do things they don't want to do. That would go against freedom and his sense for justice. Next is Sonic CD, where Eggman tries to seize the power of the Time Stones to finally conquer the world, along with Little Planet, which is literally a sentient planet. That's badass. Sonic finds the planet in its sad and chained up state, and travels along the chains to encounter Eggman, Amy, and Eggman's strongest creation to date, Metal Sonic. Sonic makes his way through, defeating Metal Sonic and Eggman, and returning Amy to a safe place. This brings up another common theme of the Sonic games, which is naturality versus artificiality. Something still brought up in modern games to a degree, but it almost seems like they forgot the point and just copy and pasted it into recent games like Sonic Forces because they know it works. To an extent, nature is freedom. So Sonic defeating Eggman in literally an artificial version of himself is symbolic of him following through with his philosophy. Or at least that's how I see it. But Metal Sonic being a sentient being brings in questions of its own, challenging Sonic head to head, something we'll see a bit later in the timeline too. Oh, and Sonic literally looks at you and jumps out of bounds if you take too long to control him in this game, showing his attitude once again.
I'm out of here!
Moving on to Sonic 2, Sonic just has an airplane now. It's called the Tornado. And no, Tails didn't make it, despite him appearing and meeting our mascot in this game. Sonic just has a plane. It probably relates back to his design being inspired by pilots? I don't know, this series is weird, man. Eggman came to West Side Island to find the emeralds, including the missing 7th emerald, and to capture animals for his army once again. Sonic and Tails, who we'll get to a bit later, stops Eggman's plans and destroys the Death Egg. And to finish off the classic games, we have Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Knuckles, and Knuckles, and Knuckles, and Knuckles, where Eggman lands on Angel Island and tricks Knuckles into believing Sonic is the bad guy, stealing the Chaos Emeralds and even hurting the animals. Knuckles catches Super Sonic off guard, takes back the Chaos Emeralds and forces Sonic to collect them again in order to defeat Eggman. Side note, this doesn't make any sense, because in the manual, there seems to also be a set of emeralds that Knuckles is protecting on the island, which means there are 2 sets of emeralds, but that never comes into play again? Does this imply the Chaos Emeralds warp between locations, or that Knuckles protected them on this island before they showed up on other islands in the previous games? I don't know why they wrote it this way, it must be some sort of mistake. You want to talk about inconsistencies in Sonic 06? Let's go back a decade. But I'm not here to talk about those. I have a podcast and stream for that. At the end of the day, Sonic and Tails climb aboard the Death Egg as it's launching into space and defeat Eggman once again. Knuckles realizing the error in being too gullible and teaming up with us to save the day. And that rounds off the classic games I feel are important to Sonic's character. He just needs to stop Eggman at all costs, who stands in opposition to his philosophy 100% of the time, taking away the freedom of others. These classic games squeeze every ounce of character possible into Sonic with the limited resources they had because it was their main selling point for the games. Because of that smug demeanor, easygoing yet compassionate attitude, and of course his speed, Sonic would go down in history as an icon. And I think his character traits are just as much present moving forward as they were in this games, at least at their core. I won't spend all day giving examples, but he thought it would be fun to fight a being who absorbs bullet shots. There's also when he immediately lashes back against Eggman's threats, calling him a loser. Or when he chases after Amy as she runs away from Zero, showing that he does care after all. How about when he faced off against a way more powerful Chaos, and is still undeterred in his fight? He even helps Big get his friend Froggy back even though he's never met him. Then there's of course when he used the positive energy of the Chaos Emeralds to calm Chaos's heart, instead of trapping him inside the Master Emerald, which he believed would only make things worse later. Do I have to bring up Freedom again? In SA2, the very first cutscene we see is him escaping custody after being captured by the military by jumping off a plane and using a part he ripped off of it as a skateboard. When Sonic is in a cell on Prison Island, he's even more opposed to the thought of marriage and losing even more of his freedoms if Amy were to save him and let him out. Essentially trading one prison for another. Jeez, harsh view of marriage, buddy. How about when he jumped into the president's private limo to find out where Dr. Eggman is transmitting from, completely taking control of the situation and then bouncing? Or when Eggman thought he had him cornered. Sonic was about to take him down before the egg golem was thrown on him, only for this not to stop him at all, and for him to just pin the thing on Eggman himself. Then there's of course his extremely cocky and bold, "You've turned into a big-time villain, Doctor," line to try and fool Eggman. Even when the stakes were as high as they were, his confidence did not falter. And at the end of the game, when the arc is propelling toward the planet, he seriously asks Eggman what's going on, before immediately going back to mocking him for doubting his ability to survive. In Heroes, Sonic confidently takes Eggman's world-conquering threat as a new excuse to party. When Sonic and Shadow first meet after Shadow was assumed dead after his fall to Earth, Sonic doesn't even question it, knowing how strong he is. He chooses to just taunt him instead. He also chooses not to finish off Metal Sonic once beating him, even after threatening the entire world. He says anytime he wants a rematch, to let him know, and that he'll be waiting. Side note, it's really sweet that the other artificial life forms are the ones picking up Metal Sonic here. And right after this, Sonic says there's no time to waste before the next adventure. Here's Sonic viewing the Black Arms invasion as a new challenge for himself, but when it comes to Shadow taking over the world when influenced by Black Doom, he refuses to let him. Well, tries to anyway. Oh, and then there's that one time we subscribed to the Juicebox so we could see more character analysis videos on his friends. Be like Sonic. In Secret Rings, Sonic uses his last wish from Shara for a mountain of handkerchiefs so that she can mourn the loss of her lover and main antagonist of the game, Eraser Jin, who called him a rat. Because even if he was abusive, he understands the pain she must be going through with that false sense of love, and that not everything is black and white. It's actually really, really sweet that they decided to write this in. Then in Black Knight, when fighting Marlena, he continuously gets knocked out, but refuses to give up what he stands for. Every world has its end. That's why you have to live life to its fullest while it's around. In Sonic Colors, Sonic goes out of his way to help an alien species he has never met when he finds out that Eggman is using them in their homeworld to power his new theme park. Just like the animals in the classics. Throughout Lost World, he keeps up his witty demeanor while constantly making fools of the Deadly Six. Even if I hate most of the dialogue in this game, he does still have that part of his attitude. Even in Sonic Boom, he retains his nature. The glitches can't stop. In Forces, first thing he does after getting free from prison is save the person who went there to rescue him in the first place, not missing a beat or a fist bump. And at the end of the day, when the world is saved and everyone else is cleaning up after Eggman's messes together, he decides to run off, following his own way, regardless of what anyone else thinks or wants. Whew. How'd I do? I really thought I could get through that as fast as Sonic, but I guess I'm just not cut out for that sort of thing. Forgive me for going off the rails there. I will say I like the themes of environmentalism that have carried their way as far as Forces and the parallels to cleaning up our world. We need to come together as a species to do that. I guess he really did have an influence on me after all, that being a huge passion of my own. But I think there might be a few people who he's had a greater influence on, aren't there?
True that.
Let's start with Tails, our dual-tailed fluffy buddy. This is Sonic's closest friend, who he noticed following him around back in Sonic 2. Being a shy, young boy, anytime Sonic would notice him, he'd turn away. He didn't have much confidence, but chose to fight against his fears due to the presence of someone who can shine through just by being himself. He was intrigued and inspired, but couldn't quite match his pace. But then he learned to use both of his tails to propel himself alongside him. And that's when Sonic took interest in the little guy, when he showed that he could be himself. He ran straight into danger, taking down Eggman with Sonic. And this self-growth continues into Sonic Adventure, where when Sonic is on his own journey, Tails reminisces about when he first met his friend. But at the end of the day, he ends up having to fight Eggman in order to save the city from being attacked. He simply says that he's not scared, and that he can do it himself this time, showing his growth as an independent person instead of relying on the one he's been inspired by. Next up is Amy Rose. At first, Amy was barely able to take care of herself when in dangerous situations. As a result, she was pretty much that damsel in distress style of character who needed Sonic to save her whenever she got into trouble. That's essentially half the plot of Sonic CD after all. Recognizing her flaws, she eventually started chasing after her hero, and gradually grew into a more tenacious and proactive girl who is as strong as Sonic. In her own way, of course. You can see her growth in, once again, Sonic Adventure. While she at first relied on Sonic to help her with E100 Zero, after finding the family of the bird she was taking care of, she eventually realized that she had the strength to deal with it all along. She just needed to find the courage. If Sonic is doing all of this on his own, why can't she? She needs to prove herself, and it only keeps going from there. obtaining that courage to approach characters like Shadow to change his heart about giving other people a chance just by being herself. Then, in Sonic Heroes, she's on her own journey, willing to even oppose Sonic if it means following her own morals. She'll do things her own way from here on out, just like Sonic. And hey, he likes that more anyway. Time for the protector of the Master Emerald and our resident Knucklehead. They didn't exactly start out as friends, but they've certainly warmed up to each other over time. I'd say these two are almost exact opposites. If Sonic is as free as the wind, always living life to experience new things, then Knuckles is as stoic as Red Mountain, feeling content and relaxed in routine. But I'd say Sonic rubbed off on Knuckles at least a little bit, getting him to leave the altar once in a while for an adventure, or just to loosen up. When they first met, Knuckles would do whatever he could to preserve the state things were in, because that's where he's most comfortable and balanced. Because of his lack of social interactions up until this point, Eggman was able to fool him into thinking Sonic was the enemy. But at the end of the day, Sonic proved his innocence. He proved that Knuckles might actually be able to trust someone, despite Eggman leading him to believe otherwise. In Sonic Adventure, Knuckles was fooled once again, but then Sonic reaffirmed his innocence and trustworthiness. Knuckles needed to collect the pieces of the broken Master Emerald in order to return to a peaceful state of mind, but he goes on quite the journey doing it. And by their third adventure, Knuckles had become more comfortable leaving his home, shattering the Master Emerald himself if it meant that Eggman wouldn't get a hold of it, even if it meant he had to collect all the pieces again. He's becoming more comfortable in the moment, just like Sonic. Knuckles must use the knowledge he's accumulated in his past adventures in order to help save the entire planet at the end of this game. Skills he wouldn't have if he didn't take the risks, like learning his history and reciting the ritual to stop the Chaos Emeralds here. I think after an experience like that, you have to learn that it's okay to go with the flow sometimes. And it all started when he met Sonic. And by the time Sonic Heroes comes along, Knuckles isn't even back at Angel Island. He's ready to go on another adventure when he needs to, with his friends. I wonder if Sonic will ever see the value in settling down for a bit though. Who did Sonic influence next, I hear you ask? Well, Shadow the Hedgehog. You know how I was talking about how Sonic and Knuckles are sort of opposites? Okay, we'll take that and apply that to these two, but even more so. Though how Sonic influenced Shadow himself might be a little bit more complex, I think we can break it down in a simple manner. Ever since the two met, Shadow looked at himself as being above Sonic. Literally, from the first cutscene where he's standing above him. As the story goes on, Sonic challenges Shadow's beliefs just by going on his own journey. While Shadow's fulfilling his master plan, Sonic is living in the moment, and constantly surprises Shadow with his ability to keep on going, regardless of the odds. But what I really want to point out here is how Sonic views people, period. When Shadow asks how Sonic escaped the escape pod that would have led to his death, and then inquires who Sonic really is, Sonic replies with this.
What you see is what you get. Just a guy that loves adventure. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog!
The two build a mutual respect for each other over time, and when Rouge asks Sonic if Shadow was really built for what Professor Gerald says he was built for, well, remember when I brought up that natural versus artificial thing when I was talking about Metal Sonic before? Sonic says this.
He was what he was, a brave and heroic hedgehog who gave his life to save this planet. Shadow the Hedgehog.
He was who he was, not who he said he was. Actions speak louder than words. This fits perfectly into how Sonic views the world, because it's how he views himself. At the end of the day, Shadow didn't go with his plan, but with his heart, his moral compass reawakened. Now let's head over to Soleanna. Sonic, being the force of nature he is, just happens to find himself where he needs to be in order to stop Eggman, and saves Elise not just to be a hero, but to stop Eggman from getting what he wants. Over the course of their adventure, Elise learned that she didn't need to stay locked up and play it safe constantly, even if she is a princess. After Sonic rescued her from Eggman one of the many times, Elise looks at Sonic and realizes he's hurt. She apologizes while bandaging him up, saying that it's all her fault, but Sonic just looks at her and tells her to smile.
Smile?
It's okay that he got a little roughed up, because what mattered most was the time they shared together. And just then, a butterfly lands on Sonic's nose, then flies away with the two watching. And that symbolizes... Come on, you got this one. Freedom! It's a classic. Sonic taught Elise that it's okay to be free.
Nothing starts until you take action. If you have time to worry, then run.
And when their time together comes to an end, Elise realizes that blowing out Solaris, the flame of hope, would make it so Sonic and her had never met. She hesitates, saying that she doesn't care what happens to the world. This is of course because of how much she appreciates him and the bond they now have. But when Sonic tells her to smile, reminding her of the lessons he taught, that at the end of the day, the time that they shared together did still happen, and that you have to appreciate it for what it is, she blows out the flame with a smile. A feather from her crown being carried by the wind in the closing cutscene. True freedom. Last but not least, Chip. And all I have to do is show this one scene.
Yeah, you never doubt yourself no matter what. You never give in to the night or the darkness inside your heart. I think it's because I knew that about you. That's why I wanted you to help me. It's been so fun getting to see the world. I've lived here since the planet began, but I didn't know a thing about it. That it's so pretty, or that food tastes so good, or that people are so nice. I'm so glad I got the chance to discover all that with you, and I'm so glad that you helped me find my memory.
Do I need a reason to want to help out a friend?
Thanks, Sonic.
I hope that what I've shown proves what I was trying to say about Sonic having his own strong moral logic, and that he affects other characters deeply throughout the stories of the series. He's following his own way, regardless if people believe it to be wrong or right. I mean, just look at Eggman. I think the logical thing to do would be to end Eggman when you have the chance, at least after the 10th time he's tried to take over the world. But hey, it doesn't live up to his inner truth, does it? And just briefly, I'd like to take the IDW comics into account. Surge the Tenrec, a character who was turned into a cyborg by Dr. Starline, another main antagonist, holds a deep hatred towards Sonic for his inability to finish off his opponents, as she was created as a result of that. Her pain was made from his philosophy. I can't really blame her for how she feels. But once she's finally put on the attack against Sonic and he ends up winning, this is what he had to say to her. If this doesn't spell things out, I don't know what will. I live for the moment. I want to see the world, find all its thrills and adventures, and enjoy them. I want everyone to have the freedom to do that, too. And you wouldn't get the opportunity if I took that chance away from you. I've made peace with enough enemies to know there's a better way, so I'm willing to chalk this up to a rocky start and let us have a do-over, if you will. Sonic the Hedgehog, a character who has permanently embedded himself into my heart, making me a better person. I hope he's done the same for you. If there's anything you should take away from this analysis, it's this. Do what you believe is right, because the effect it'll have on others is everlasting. Live in the moment, because the moment is fleeting, just like the wind. And with that, I'd love to stay, but I gotta juice! Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more character analysis on Sonic characters and a bunch of other series too, then you should probably subscribe. Oh, and like the video too if you liked it. Shoutouts to all my patrons, I couldn't do it without you guys. If you want to help support the channel or see videos before they go live, then this is the best way. That's all for now, I have to go on my own adventures. Have a fantastic day.